Greetings everyone. This is Janelle Salazar Embong under the College of Teacher Education from BSc Section 1A. So for today, I'll be discussing about the Introduction to Language and Linguistics, which is introduced and written by Jeff Knorr, Linton, and Rolf Fussell. Then afterwards, I am going to answer 3 questions which is given by our instructor. So, language and linguistics plays a vital role in our society in terms of connection. When we say language, it is by means of communication. It is either written or spoken. It is our way of expressing ourselves, expressing our thoughts, ideas, and feelings towards each other. While when we say linguistics, it is the systematic study of the evolution of the human language. It is also the systematic investigation of the characteristics of the human language in general. So after differentiating language from linguistics, let us now move forward by answering the following questions. So, question number 1. How language contributes to human leverage compared to other species? When we say contribution, we are talking about in a positive way as possible. So we are talking about the advantage. How do we advantage? What are our advantage as having a human language compared to the language another species have? So the advantage is that we humans can communicate, or we can always adopt the language of another foreign culture. We can learn from their language, while the animals cannot, because their language are inherited naturally. More importantly is that we have better chances of survival, considering that we can communicate, we can understand each other, and we go well from people to people. People who grew up in several cultures can develop variety of language. Through the impact of the foreign culture, we can learn a new language. We can always adapt, learn another languages. While for the animals, they were unable to acquire new languages because their ability to communicate is only inherited naturally. Let us now proceed to the second question, which is to identify each set of the properties of language. So the first properties of language is the modularity. Means all people interpret and produce their language using a component subsystems, which these component subsystems is referred to as the modules, in a very coordinated manner. Means it takes outputs of a module and then distribute it to another modules. So the second properties is the constituency, meaning all languages are organized into constituents, allowing more complex units to structures and make it as simpler one as possible. So for example, she sat down. To the tall woman sat down. To the tall dark woman with grayed hair sat down. So the third properties of language is the recursion. It is the language which allows grammatical processes to be allowed repeatedly. So for example, he was tall and handsome and thoughtful and kind. The fourth one is the discreteness. So it means that the range of sounds that the human beings can make is continuous. So an example of this is like slide, whistle, glide, whistle. So the fifth properties of language is the productivity. It uses or adds modifiers into a sentence, or by including one sentence into another. So for example, he said that, she said that, I said that. And here's arbitrariness. It is the absence of any natural or necessary connection between a word's meaning and a form and its sound. The seventh properties of language is the reliance on context. It depends crucially in the context in which it is vocalized. Finally, the variability in which it depends on who's speaking and in which situation they are speaking. To further understand variability, it is where a single speaker will use different linguistic form in different occasion, while different speakers of a language will express the same meanings using different forms. So for the number 3, language varieties differ because over time they have adapted to the differing needs of their speech community. English language thus thinks differently. The dominant group perceived to have higher status, and the less powerful groups are stigmatized as incorrect or bad. Do I agree to this statement or not? Number 3, I agreed with the statement because some languages have that statuses. Some has in high status, low status, and have mixed status. But it's not always that fixed ranking. It changes depending on the location and also depending in the language that is involved. Well, language status is a complicated phenomenon made up of institutional attitudes regarding the language, public attitudes towards speakers of the language, and public attitudes towards the language home's country. Like for example, in Netherlands, high status language are Dutch, English, and French, while on the other hand, the low status language are Turkish, Arabic, and Greek. It only depends on the location. About the author, Ralph Fessel is a professor emeritus and a past chair of the Department of Linguistics, while Jeff Linton is an associate professor in the Department of Linguistics. So that would be all for today's discussion. Thank you and have a good day.